of the Oswego Public Library District Board of Trustees. Roll call, please, Jim.
Conan, here. Deal. Friedman.
Here.
Martyr.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Tamblin.
Here.
Wallers.
Here.
Okay. Pledge of allegiance. It's okay. We can wait.
Okay,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. The first thing we have on our agenda is a presentation by Mr. Spinelli.
Good evening. I'll introduce myself. First time here at the board meeting here. My name is Tony Spinelli. I work for Strand Associates. We're a consulting engineering firm. And in combination with our planning consultant, Hitchcock Design Group, we prepared a couple concept plans for the library board to look at and consider in order to connect the main campus here across the creek to your, I'm going to call it your north annex, basically your vacant property over there. This is something that Sarah contacted us about through Oswego Land Park District, and she gave us the vision. We met here and talked kind of about the vision, what the library was looking for, or someone within the library group. I don't know if there was a specific group initially, but talk about how they can connect that north side of the creek to the main campus. So what you have in your packet is also up here on the board. So we came up with, we had initially, I think, 3 options. We narrowed it down to 2 options for the board to consider, and the public eventually. But what we came up with is a combination of a boardwalk system and a bridge to get across the creek. That way it can be ADA accessible for wheelchairs, for everybody. If we didn't worry about it being accessible, then we wouldn't need a boardwalk. People could walk down a trail, steps and everything, get to a bridge, and then steps back on the other side. But that's not feasible. So we came up with 2 ideas. The 2 that we settled on both of them have boardwalk and bridge, identified here on the drawing. And then we also have on the north side, it's very similar, the outdoor amphitheater along with an outdoor classroom is very similarly placed, along with a parking lot dedicated to the Park District property, or I'm sorry, the library property. One concept initially was to add parking on North Street, and we went away from that idea because anytime you've got parking on a street where people have direct access from the street, it's viewed as public parking. Even though the library is a public entity, we wanted it to be known that the perception is this is for this facility only. It's not for residents to just come in, park overnight, whatever, on street parking, similar to like you were talking about out front, people using the handicap stall for drop-off. So we wanted to have a parking lot dedicated for the north side of the facility. We have an outdoor amphitheater with seating into the hill. Along the tracks, that's the lower part of the property, so we're using the existing grade to build the amphitheater and create the seating for the amphitheater area. Then we have a vegetative buffer between the amphitheater seating and the outdoor classroom. Not only does that provide noise buffer for the classroom, but it also provides noise buffer for the resident that's over here. And we're maintaining as many of these trees as possible on the property. And then you have, coming off the bridge, you have a path around to get to the amphitheater. Also have a lower path on this option. On this option number 1, we also are showing on the south side of the creek, right before, when you go from boardwalk to bridge, we have a drop-down area so that people can actually get down to the edge of the water. The initial concept was to include a path along the creek on the north side, actually north or south side. We looked into it. You currently have a footpath that I'm going to say park users have been creating on their own. It's not an official path, but they're using, and it's on the south side of the creek. Disadvantage of having this path on the south side of the creek The Park District has property on the north side of the creek, on the opposite side of Madison Street. You can't connect a path on the south side of the creek to that parking area from the Park District side. That doesn't really impact you as your user specific, but we were trying to find a connection with the Park District to connect from the river all the way up here and get to the Park District's parking lot here. We also took a look at, in the photo here, it's a bridge photo on this lower left corner. That is the existing Madison Street Bridge. That's looking underneath. And we are looking east towards the bridge. So that way, because the path on the south side didn't provide connectivity to the Park District's property, we looked at how can we provide a path maybe on the north side. And then because we would have a drop down from your bridge down to the north side. We looked at that. The problem we found is, I'm going to say the east half of your property on the north side of the creek has vertical rock ledge. And there's no room for a formal path that would be accessible and safe. So that in combination with limited head clearance underneath the existing bridge, we vacated the idea of trying to put a path along the creek. So we've come up with these ideas here. When one conceptual initial concept had the amphitheater tucked closer to the parking lot area, pointing directly at your neighbor on the other side of the creek. Not only did that take down some mature trees, we felt that it was also going to be problematic in the future. If you're having an evening event or an early Saturday event at the amphitheater, the noise, no matter what you do for vegetation, noise will travel through it. Yes, it gets reduced, but we wanted to eliminate any potential for future conflicts with your neighbor over there. So then we came up with this idea here. Both projects, actually let me take a quick step back. For each project, we did create a preliminary profile drawing to give everyone an idea of why you need a bridge and why you need a boardwalk to get across the land. So it shows option 1 and option 2 on this profile. On option 1, the main difference between both options is the length of boardwalk and the length of bridge. Both options provide you the amphitheater, the outdoor classroom, parking lot, and connection from main campus parking lot to the north area. The difference, so in option 1, got my notes here, in both options, it's a 10-foot wide boardwalk and a 10-foot wide bridge. The boardwalk section in option 1 is approximately 325 feet long, and the bridge is only 60 feet long. And that gives you a little bit more meandering through the trees, getting down to a level, gets you to the bridge, gets you across. All ADA accessible. Option number 2, also completely ADA accessible. Big change here is the boardwalk is only 177 feet and the bridge is 200 feet. So longer the bridge, higher the cost. So in the cost estimates that were provided to you, for the most part, all pay items stay the same, at least at this stage in the planning, except for the bridge and the boardwalk. You're looking at approximately, so material and installation, you're looking at approximately an extra $275,000 to do the 200-foot long bridge compared to the 60-foot long bridge. So, but both options give you accessibility, and both options get you from main campus to the north side. In the cost estimate, there's planning numbers for construction layout, mobilization by the contractor, design engineering, and also construction engineering. And that would be having, whether it's our firm or another firm, whoever does the design for you should also be watching the project for you. Unless you have qualified staff to watch this type of work, you're going to want to have someone watching it. Those are all percentage based. And then there's also a 30% contingency listed in these cost estimates. That is to help cover price increases. So these are today's costs. The bridge and boardwalk, we actually have costs. We got actual proposals from bridge and boardwalk contractors. And they gave us their typical installation fee on top of the material fee. So the 30% would cover whether you did this project this year or 5 years down the road. It helps get you that buffer to say, okay, if we waited, how much extra might this cost? We think, and you can see a full 8.5 by 11 page of pay items. We have a pretty good idea of the pay items that would be involved in the project. It's just a function of when the project actually happens, what these costs become. So with that, if anyone has any questions on it. Sure, yes, sir.
Type of bridge that you're envisioning for the project?
So the bridge itself would be a steel structure, and then the deck.
Prefabricated structure?
Yes,
Like
yes,
a
sir.
span or something?
Yes.
Right.
And the boardwalk would also be a manufactured sections. You could do a timber stick build on site, but the price we have is from a boardwalk manufacturer that does a steel frame with boardwalk rails and boardwalk planking. So the users would not see the steel framing of that boardwalk section. Yes, ma'am.
Does a boardwalk over the long term require more maintenance versus the bridge?
It can. So if you use real wood, then yes, there'll be maintenance for staining it, but you can use a manufactured wood like a Trex decking that cuts down on your maintenance requirements.
Sarah, are we partnering with anybody in this?
Currently we are partnering, let me back up a little bit. We're partnering with the Oswego Park District and the Oswego Village. We're taking the lead because it's a property, but Oswego Park District has been in our meetings, worked with us, and we've also met with the village, Oswego Village.
Right, and I believe the current process that we're looking to, or the path we're looking to go down is apply for grants. One of them would be an OSLAD grant. That does have maximum funding on it. I believe currently at $600,000. But the partnership with the village and the park district definitely helps, and that's one of the reasons why we try to get a path along the creek to connect park district land through your property.
Was there any discussion of maybe doing less of like a straight shot for it? Because we do have, I mean, the town does have, Hudson Crossing Park and pathways over there, and potentially, bringing pathways up, not necessarily just to get a straight shot into the park district, but even if they were kind of meandering, if one connected kind of up to the amphitheater area, and then maybe there was one that went around the circumference to get up to the park district, or what kind of options were discussed?
So what was discussed is, because of the railroad, any path on North Street or Adams is going to have to cross at the current crossing. So that's partially, not only because of the parking lot, but that's why we also brought the sidewalk and path on your site all the way out to North Street. So that could provide connectivity. Again, we looked at something along the creek, but there's just not sufficient safe space to have a formal path down there.
I see there's a electrical panel for the amphitheater area. Talk to me about lighting. Would there be lighting along there, or is that, to light up if you have evening activities going on?
So yes, there can be. So this is
So this isn't including it's including some electrical wiring for the amphitheater.
correct.
But it doesn't include any lighting along the along the bridge and along the, because I could see, activities that are going on in the evening and it's dusk and it's starting, the sun is setting. We would need lighting along there, because otherwise it'd be pretty dark. You have people out there doing an activity.
Right, and that's one of the things where we did not include it intentionally because there's so many different options for the type of lighting
Okay,
that I didn't want to skew any of the conceptual budget.
okay.
But that's where that 30% contingency also comes into play by adding things like that. Because I have seen complete solar lights along paths. They typically last until about 10, 11 o'clock at night, then they go out. I've also seen clients actually put LED rope lights along the railing, and then we've also seen pillar lights.
So there are multiple options.
Absolutely.
But it seems like that would be, some type of lighting would be necessary.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that when we look at this, I'm gonna call it the 200-foot bridge. This bridge here, even though right now it's drawn right next to the dumpster, it would give library staff and law enforcement the opportunity in the evening to look directly across that bridge. Now, the downside would be every single user coming in the parking lot can also look straight across that bridge, and you might not like that visibility, which is where this switchback boardwalk maintains your privacy of crossing the creek. It's just a preference of how you want it to look. You want more bridge, more boardwalk. In the end, the entire path will be elevated from the parking lot all the way to the north side of the creek.
How, excuse me, how high is the bridge over the creek?
In the shorter version, it's approximately 8 feet over the current water level. And in the 200-foot bridge, at the shortest, you're about 11 feet over the creek.
Okay. My concern would be, if you've been here long enough, you know that the street, or the bridge on Adams Street got taken out one year when
Yep,
the floodwaters, the 50-year flood comes every 3 years.
sure.
So my concern would be losing the bridge at one of those times.
Right, so when this gets designed, once we get to the engineering phase, we will look hard and fast at that because there's going to be permitting requirements. But we already did take account into, based on the flood studies that's available from IDNR and FEMA, we know where your flood elevation is. So on the 60-foot bridge, you'll have approximately 3 foot clear above the 100-year storm event. And then, likewise, you're going to have roughly, call it 7 feet of clearance on the 200-foot bridge. And that's based on the 100-year storm. That's what all the regulations are based on. And even if you got a larger storm, or you had debris that made it past the Madison Street Bridge and came down towards your bridge, the bridge supports are outside of the main floodway. Now, yes, once it floods, it's going to come up onto the fringe area, and you're going to get some, you're going to get some debris there. But the north side, the bridge pillar is going to be close to that floodway limit. So there's potential for things to hit it, but it's going to be built such that it can withstand floating debris coming down the creek. And then with the 200-foot bridge, the support for the bridge is way, 200 foot away from the other side. It's pretty far out there. So, but during the design stage, we would go through all those calculations to make sure we are well enough above that design elevation and a comfort level for you as a board without saying, go up another 3 feet, now it's an extra 300,000. The height doesn't correlate directly with the cost of the bridge. But I think we're at a comfortable height right now where it's drawn to be protected from large storm events.
This may be a less serious thought, but what if the idea of having more direct access and not having to do the switchback is good, but I also do like the aesthetic kind of meandering nature of the switchback. What if there were to be stairs from the top of the boardwalk to the bottom of the boardwalk in option 1? I know it wouldn't be ADA accessible, but it still, the boardwalk still would be.
Right.
So
I would not advise that because you're a public entity. You have to follow ADA guidelines. And you would potentially open yourself up to an ADA lawsuit because you did not make it accessible to all users.
even though there's already a path?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Aren't
ADA.
there like really pretty like stone ones?
Well,
That just like, we could say it's a garden feature,
Right. So I will use an example. I was at approximately 6 months ago. I was at an ADA conference. I go to them often, and one of the attendees had asked the instructor, "What's the big deal?" So the instructor gave a quick analysis of let's say we have this situation here. And if these were stairs, and we said, every user except those in a wheelchair can go up the stairs to get to the classroom. But with the wheelchair, you have to go all the way around to come back to get to the classroom. Yes, you're providing them access, but it's not equal opportunity.
I see.
And the example was, change ADA accessibility, change that out and say civil rights. If everyone in this room can use the gas station across the street, but a user out in the library right now can't,
Yeah,
it's a civil rights violation.
sure.
It's similar with ADA requirements.
Important perspective shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why ADA is important, and that's why, especially as a public entity,
Yeah.
you need to follow it as close as possible to help your users. Another example, I was at a board meeting for a community up north. They recently rehabbed their boardroom, and they provided stairs because they put an elevated platform for their trustees. They talked about, do we need ramps? Village manager said, no, we don't need ramps, everyone can get up there. A few months after they had it all done and they had 1 or 2 meetings, one of their trustees had a heart attack and had to be in a wheelchair. He no longer could sit up at the board. So that was now a violation. He didn't file a complaint, but they could have very simply added a ramp during that construction to make it completely ADA accessible. So it applies to the public, it also applies to employees.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So, and then, like this drawing here does call out that these are steps.
right.
After this got drawn and colored, we actually saw that it was better to have a boardwalk on the north side.
Yeah,
That way, we eliminated that potential for an ADA claim.
right. Because it doesn't matter if like a pretty stone set of stairs is like an afterthought added, it's still like could be perceived as. Okay, I see.
It could be.
Okay.
It could be a potential, someone could have a potential claim against the library if it wasn't accessible.
Okay,
Similar also, if these doors are too heavy for someone in a wheelchair to operate,
right.
and you don't have push buttons, you would have to have someone stationed at that door to make sure you open the door for them. You don't have to have the push buttons, but you have to have someone there to operate the door. And ideally, it should be propped open for everybody, but once it's closed, then you need someone there opening the door for everybody. You know, so it's those fine-tuned little things that not everyone's aware of, and that's why when we're looking at these projects, we're saying, how can we make the entire thing accessible? One thing I didn't mention, both of the drawings show, I'm going to call it a striped walking path from the boardwalk at the corner of the bridge, the library building to the staff entrance. The intent is actually to have a striped area all the way to the brick pavers so that staff does not have to bring children through the staff area. They can get safely to the main entrance. By doing that, we'll have to modify the parking stall configuration, but we'll terminate that walking path prior to getting to the entrance, because I don't want to have to modify the entrance and then cause trouble and expense.
With the longer bridge, there's no way to have the stairs and gravel down to the creek overlook like you have on the shorter bridge, is that right?
Right.
We have a lot of people who come fishing, and that's.
Yeah. So you could provide something, basically starting at the dumpster area
Okay,
to get them down, but the bridge is elevated the entire way.
okay,
And there wouldn't be, I mean, I guess there could be a platform built off the side of it possibly to put the stairs, but the way these are manufactured, they're manufactured as a bridge.
okay.
There are opportunities to add overlooks on these bridges. So like I said, right now these are 10 foot wide. If you felt there was a critical spot, or maybe both sides right over the water, you want to kick that out another, say 8 feet, put an extra overlook platform so people can get off the way of the people walking and overlook. Maybe they want to fish from the bridge and, you know, try that. You know, that's an opportunity to enhance the bridge. And those are all things that can come once you get into the design, the next phase. But, you know, you can definitely do stuff like that. You know, there probably is a way to add steps on the longer bridge. But I'd have to ask them though.
Okay. I'm just thinking of our current
Yep.
use, I know I see a lot of people fishing.
Sure, and that's why, in option one, we did do that. At the transition between boardwalk and bridge, we did add the stairs down to the south side of the creek.
Sarah, what are you looking for tonight?
The board's reaction between option one and option two to kind of narrow it a bit, so we can start working on it. Also, I know we spoke about the manufacturing of it can be done on the north side, so it wouldn't impact as much what we're doing here with our services and our parking lot. So if we could kind of narrow it between the two, then we'd be able to working with engineers and the other public entities and toward the grant.
Is the amphitheater space larger in option two, the seating space, because with the singular walking path around the perimeter versus,
It does appear that it has they bumped it out a little bit here.
yeah, and even the stage kind of looks more angled out.
It could be just the way on option two, the way they showed the concrete joints of the stage. You know, there might be a few feet here or there that are slightly different. I don't think that was not intentional. I did not tell them to make a bigger bridge to steer you to one option or the other. Because the way this drawing, all this stuff up here is all hand drawn. So it's probably just the way they.
It's very nicely hand drawn too.
I'll let our Hitchcock group let them know.
Way better than what I thought.
And this is all contingent on grant
All
applications.
grants, or something to show to the public, to the legislators, have something to kind of sell.
Right, and that's why we're providing you with the two options you guys select, and I don't know if Sarah, if you're putting it up for the library members to, also weigh in, I don't know if you're doing that, but moving forward with the grant application, you have to go with a single option to the grant. You can't go to the grant and say, hey, we want one or two, here's our costs, how much are you gonna give me, and then we'll decide which one we want. No, they wanna know what's your conceptual drawing of what you'd like to proceed, and that's what gets tagged and attached to the grant applications.
Do you want a decision tonight, or we could?
It's on the agenda if you want to discuss it later, or if you want to think about it, we can discuss it, amongst ourselves next month. Just maybe kind of think about it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and really, it's timing for you guys. I believe this year's application for OSLAD, I believe, is August. I'll have to double check with Colleen, because Colleen's usually doing the OSLAD applications when we're working with the Park District.
Yeah.
It's around that July to September timeframe where you have to submit.
Right, so as we're moving toward it, to have some public input,
Right.
some of that, as well as I have a copy of the old grant, so I'm really working with what we had last year, and going through whether we'll get some public input, but if we could narrow it just a bit in the next couple months, that would help us kind of have time to do some public input.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if any questions come up, Sarah's got my contact information. You can definitely send me, any questions that might come up. Sarah also has all this information electronically if you guys need it.
Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome.
Yeah, you missed.
Put it on the agenda for our next meeting, and we can kind of spend a little more time on it then when we've had a chance to do it. Yeah.
Mayor, Nate?
Terry, with something like this, are there any options for also leveraging private funding, it's a brick and mortar, so we thought, hey, who would be interested in this? Do we have any options for that? Are you aware of anything
I think we'll always have that option if we can find, if people.
It is a little more complicated when we have grant money to build it.
Yeah.
So, just saying, it's probably not impossible, but it gets challenging for sure.
Do we think you said up to 600, what do you think the grant really would get? what's our likelihood to get close to that, right?
It just depends on the scoring. I know that with the Park District, I believe they received a $600,000 grant for the Farmington Lakes improvements that are gonna happen this summer. They're doing a pedestrian bridge, a kayak launch, a pavilion, and a parking lot on the south side of the lake, and also a walking path around to connect the path that's on the north and east side of the lake. They're gonna come around the west side and between the canal and the lake.
It's all plans there, so.
So, and I believe they got a $600,000 grant.
What about an ITEP grant?
That may be a possibility also.
They have a lot higher funding threshold, it's, 8%, I think it's over, up to 2 million, so that might be, I would definitely think we'd want to respond to that. Now, those are cyclic, and I don't know when the next cycle comes up for ITEP, so I think we want to pursue that, for sure.
So if we get grant money, well, I'm trying to understand. And then there's somebody out there who says, well, I'm gonna write a check to you guys for $500,000, but I want the bridge named after me. I mean, what you see those kinds of things all the time.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't interfere with grant money then, does it?
No, because the grant is being given to
Okay.
the recipient.
So something like that is a possibility.
Right, so if the library gets, say it's a $600,000 maximum with the Oswego grant, the library still has to come up with funds.
Okay, right.
The funding agency, I don't want to say they don't care, but as long as the rest of the project can be funded, they're granting you that money.
Okay.
So you definitely can have fundraisers
All right.
to help support that extra cost.
It's the labor element that gets tricky.
Yes. But there are definite grant opportunities and shared funding opportunities out there. It's just a matter of applying and scoring high enough to actually win the grant. I know that we are preparing documentation for the Park District for the pedestrian crossing over the river, and it's going to be a long process for that to get that bridge improved, but there's funding for that one also. It's just a matter of scoring enough points, like adding enhancements to the park to then have the bureaucrats justify enough points and say, yes, giving money to the Park District to improve this bridge helps pedestrian action from Village Hall to Hudson Park. And so it's just a matter of timing and what type of improvements and convincing the people evaluating the applications that you should get the money.
Tony, did you guys look at wetlands?
Not at this point, but we will, the wetland impacts will definitely be looked at during engineering.
So that could theoretically be part of the contingency as well.
Yes, sir. And with the wetland impacts during construction would be temporary, and they allow temporary
Well,
disruption, but then your bridge piers
right,
would obviously be a permanent obstruction.
yeah, right. I think it just needs to be mapped.
Yes, it does.
Because I think you might find more wetlands out there than you think.
And then one of the other reasons why we included the meandering path was to avoid we would have an arborist with the village and us come out and identify the higher quality trees along with the healthier trees to make sure we, do the very best possible job to avoid those type of trees. So we're looking at minimal disruption of vegetation through there.
And you envision you've included for the design engineering, the floodway permitting and all
Yes.
that.
That's on the bottom as a percentage of the cost study.
I just want to make sure that's included. And Terry, to your point, I do think, even though that might be the published flood elevation, I was on the 96 flood committee for Wabansie Creek. Of course, that was storm, flood of record, but, we've seen, with the new bulletins coming out that, flood elevations are going up. This is an old flood study, I believe, on Wabansie Creek, so I think when we go out for design, we need to discuss that a little bit so that whoever's coming in to do that, you know, takes that into account for their fee structure.
Yeah, the IDNR permit will require current modeling.
Yeah, well, yes, but for the hydraulics, but I'm more concerned about the flow, the cues. Because I know from other parts of this creek, you know, oftentimes the 100-year flood has been exceeded.
Right.
Is my point. So, but that's getting a little far in the weeds.
Yeah, we did look, when we did set this, not only did we look at the flood elevation and a comfort level above the regulatory flood elevation, we also did look at the railroad bridge and the height of Madison Street. So, we did look at upstream and downstream too.
Understood.
Much more to be done before it becomes a reality, but it's a great idea.
I think it was a wonderful.
It's beautiful.
Again, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, approval of the minutes. Say, please take a look at those. At this time, we've got session minutes, regular session, and personnel committee.
I will make a motion to approve the regular session minutes and personnel committee minutes from January 22nd, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, roll call, please, Jim.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tamblin,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Conan, yes, Friedman,
Yes.
Martyr.
Yes.
Correspondence.
We do have some correspondence. In our suggestion box, we had a request for more Dostoevsky books. Request for laptops and local hotspots, so people could work on their resumes and employment more easily. And then someone was requesting library bags for when they check out books. And we also had a donation in memory of Mary Ellen Hull, who was a heavy library user, and we donated money on her behalf in her memory.
Her husband was a teacher at the high school.
Yes, he was.
I think she sold real estate.
She sold us our house.
Did she?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, funny person.
And sold our other one. She did both ends.
Okay, that it?
That's all I have.
All right, moving on. Financials. Let's take a look at the fund balance and revenue and expense reports, please.
Fund balance on page 9, all pretty standard. The only kind of note is that we just paid our bonds, so the bond balance is pretty low. We just made a good payment. If you go to page 10, you will see we have gotten 600% of our expected interest income. That is because the rates are high right now, and we also kind of had our estimate fairly low, because it's been low in the past. So doing well on our interest income. And other than that, I don't have anything for the fund balance or expenses.
On 22, just, I circled that when you saw the pictures of the movie down here. So was that the expense for the study there?
It is, that'll be in the bills, in the next section, yes.
Oh, maybe I'm a little ahead.
Motion when you're ready.
Make a motion to approve the fund balance and revenue and expense reports.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Walders,
Yes.
Conan, abstain, Friedman,
Yes.
Martyr,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Hamblin.
Yes. Accounts payable, bills.
That starts on page 19. Two things to point out, on page 20, you'll see our hoopla, 10,900, that is for 1 month. We did up how much we let people check out, and it's been enjoyed a lot, and so the bill is a little bit higher than normal. Page 22, for Street Associates, that was the payment for part of the bridge planning. At the bottom of page 22, Utica National Insurance, that is our workman's comp insurance payment. I think it's a once-a-year payment, is that correct, Melissa?
Yes.
Once a year. And otherwise, these are the kind of the only outstanding bills I have noted, unless anyone has any questions on anything.
Only other thing I circled on 22, it's just a curiosity, is the making of I Love Lucy 400, what were those?
I think that's an adult services, like a performer, they act out, it's a presentation program that adults can go to.
Is that something we've already had or something that's coming
It's
up?
coming up. I think it's in March.
It's Saturday, March 22nd from 1 to 2 at the Montgomery campus.
I was like, that's a pretty expensive book.
No, it's not. It's an actor.
It's a Lucille Ball historian, Todd Hunt, takes you back to the golden age of television with slides, audio, video clips to reveal the classic show was created.
Krista, I noticed the motion said January, they were February ballots.
Oh,
We just want to make sure.
Could I have a motion on the accounts payable bills?
Motion for approval of January 2025 bills in the amount of $360,188.
The amendment to be February bill, sorry, that's a error.
Oh.
February bill.
Oh, sorry,
Apologies.
sorry, amendment to that. So approval of the February 2025 bills in the amount of $368,000.
thank you.
$360,188.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Anything else? Jim?
Martyr,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Hamblin,
Yes.
Walders,
Yes.
Conan, abstain, Friedman.
Yes.
Assistant Director's Report. Only took how many months?
It has been a while I've been doing it. For January, our circulations were down slightly, but our e-materials were up more than normal. I don't know if that's weather related or not.
It's cold.
You'll notice we have a picture on the middle of page 25. We've started doing, our outreach department has started going out to senior living facilities. That's our circulation manager with the patron, and we are able to actually sign residents there up for library cards while we visit, and then in future visits, we can bring out materials for them. I think he's funded 2 or 3 different senior living facilities so far. And people are very excited. I know they said that they're marking their calendars because a lot of the residents don't actually get out of the facility very often.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been, he said it's been going really well. Let's see, what else do I have noted? Our database use on page 26, you'll notice it is quite high. 15,700, it's up almost 10,000 uses more than normal. That is related to, some of the schools have been using some of the children's databases in the classroom. And so a lot of the teachers are using it many times a day, every day during the school year. So that's why that one's so much higher than normal. And then the picture there is a picture of our youth services program. They had a New Year's Eve party for the little kids. They could come and they had confetti and you got to blow their little horns and such. So that's it on the director's report, unless anyone has any specific questions.
I know we use the library's subscription to PogoGo and BookFlix, especially when we've had like the snow days or cold days or whatever. My girls really love going on there. They're like, can we go on PogoGo now? That's really great.
On the reciprocal borrowing,
Yes.
did I tell the person when I was voting correctly that if they live in the Aurora Public Library District and they have a card, they're in? Didn't know that. He's closer to the Montgomery campus than he is to Aurora, and thought that was a great plan. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the assistant director's report?
I'll make a motion to approve the assistant director's report.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Roll call.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tamblin,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Conan, yes. Friedman,
Yes.
Martyr.
Yes.
Committee reports. Personnel, that would be Christine, wouldn't it? Maybe you could just go over what we did.
Personnel committee, we presented a adjusted salary scale with the automatic 2% increase, and then we had a list of all the employees, with what our salaries would look like for next fiscal year if we went up to a 3% raise, 4% raise, or a 5% raise. And it's just kind of to give us an idea of where we'd be looking at for salaries next year. And we also discussed adding a part-time IT position potentially, adding a paging position, and what we're thinking we might need staffing wise for next year.
And that'll come back when we do budget, which we're going to start tonight with the finance committee
Yes.
after the meeting. Okay, any questions? Moving on to unfinished business, open space concept plans. Okay. And we'll bring that back next month. All right, 13, meeting date ordinance. You have that in your packet. These are the dates for next year. Could I have a motion on that ordinance, please?
Approval of the ordinance 25-3 meeting date ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If anyone has a conflict or whatever, let us know. Otherwise, at this time, no questions. Jim, please.
Martyr,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tamblin,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Conan, yes. Friedman.
Yes.
Okay. First reading, unpaid leaves of absence, family bereavement leave act.
This is on page 28. We had previously, 2 years ago, passed a child bereavement. The state has adjusted the law to now include multiple family members. So on page 29, and you'll see it in red, is the amended law. The main change is the last paragraph on page 29, where they changed who is covered by this law. And children, we noted, we actually have that as a paid leave. If your child dies, you can take off the 2 weeks and still be paid. The rest of this, though, we thought we would leave under unpaid leave.
So that runs all the way over through 30.
Yes, everything in red is new.
So we don't need an approval. We just
This is a first reading.
accept it as a first reading.
Yep.
Take a look at it. Next month, we'll bring it back, and if you have questions, send them in ahead of time or bring them with you next time. Okay? Okay, first reading purchasing policy.
Page 31, this is we have a purchasing policy, but it is fairly out of date. This is the policy that the state of Illinois lists on their website as a recommended policy. And so rather than trying to update our old policy to be compliant with the new policy, we thought we would just change over to follow their recommended policy. Mostly just outlines how much money we can spend without needing to go out for bid or without needing board approval or those sorts of things.
This is straight from the state policy.
It is straight off the state's website. And this is also just a first reading,
Yeah.
not for vote.
Any comments? If not, we'll accept that for first reading and bring it back next month. Another one, first reading, fund balance policy.
So Andrew Kim presented in November to us at a finance committee meeting, and he had recommended that we should get a fund balance policy in place. We did not have one because we used to not put money in the general funds. We used to put everything in the special reserve at the end of the fiscal year. But if we are keeping funds over from year to year, we should have a fund balance policy. This one we did send to Andrew Kim to look over, as well as the attorney, to get their input, and they both said they thought it looked good.
So it's by fund. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We've got page 36, the debt service fund. This one, I just wanted to make a note that if it's not, if there's leftover money, it does get abated and would be returned back to the,
Okay.
so just make a note of that. That's new for us as well.
Okay. Any comments? Otherwise, we'll accept this for first reading and bring it back next month. 13E, staff training day.
Every August, we usually have a day where the library is closed for staff training. This year, we were looking at, it's always kind of a safety thing because we do have to review, as part of being a public library review, like what fire extinguishers are, what to do for tornadoes, like all those safety things. This one, we were going to focus on staff safety and stress management. Last year, we had our active threat training, which was fairly intense, so we thought this year we would try to do something a little less intense for the staff. And we were looking at Friday, August 8th is the date to close to hold the staff training.
Okay. Would someone like to make that motion, please?
Make a motion to approve to close the library on Friday, August 8th, 2025, for staff training day focused on staff safety and stress.
As a result of last year's meeting? Stress me.
Can
I don't know.
Board members are
Is there a
I'll
s-
find my psychiatrist.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, no other comments? Roll call, please, Jim.
Wallers,
Yes.
Conan, yes. Friedman,
Yes.
Martyr,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Hamblin.
Yes. 13F, non-resident cards.
Every year, the board has to vote in order for us to have non-resident cards. And we follow the tax bill method of payment, meaning we look at the value of their house to determine how much they would pay to have a library card with us, just as our taxpayers do.
Does that hold the number of cards, is that pretty steady?
It's
been about 2,000 for the last
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah, last year, we got about 1,800, 1,900 in payments for that. It's usually right around there.
Not a lot.
No, it's NAOSIC, so whoever NAOSIC, it's usually, I believe, the same families.
So people should join the club.
Hmm.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to provide non-resident cards for 1 year, starting July 1st, 2025, using the tax bill method of payment.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please, Jim.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Hamblin,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Conan, yes. Friedman,
Yes.
Martyr.
Yes.
Okay. At this point in the agenda, we'll move to total public comment, to open session comments. The board will now receive public comment concerning items on the agenda, as well as communications reports from citizens and representatives from other agencies. Such comments should not include discussion of personnel matters, which should be brought directly to the attention of the director. Board meeting is a meeting held in public, it's not a meeting with the public, and so on and so on. Any comments?
Just want to say hi. Hi. And thank you for meeting. Terry and Sarah met with me, what was that, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half, something. I appreciated that a lot. So I hope it's the first of more, because it meant a lot to just be heard. So thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Okay, moving on, closed session. We do need a closed session for purchase or lease of real property for use of public body. So at this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's take a minute and then we'll